So let's investigate Fusion 360 a little bit in light of the chess piece design sprint. I'm going to start with the first version that you might want to give a shot at is the creating using the primitives. I'm going to start with a cylinder base. I'm going to select the plane for the bottom of the base. I'll start with the XY plane to work on. And then I'm going to create that base. I'm going to start with a 3 centimeter or 30 millimeter base size. Hit return to apply. There we go. And I want to work within probably at least a 3 or 3 or 4 millimeter thickness for that. In fact, I might want it to be a little more substantial. Let's give it a 5 millimeter base. There we go. And it will create a new body. Hit OK. And there's the base for my pawn. The height for the pawn needs to be, let's review, height for the pawn needs to be 1.25 to 1.5 times base. So let's go with a taller pawn. 1.5 is going to make it 4.5 centimeters, 45 millimeters tall. So we have 5 as the base, so we need another 4 centimeters for the height. Let's do this with a box. And I'd like to start that box on top of the, in fact, I can start it right at the center point there. I will still need to move that, actually, start it over here. Because the wherever you tap starts the corner of your box, you don't necessarily want to start that right in the center. I'll show you how we can align them in a minute. Or you can start somewhere in the ballpark and move it over. We have a 3 centimeter, so let's do a little more than half. Oh, maybe 15. We'll do 15. We'll do half that size for the side of the cube, and then we'll go up. What did we say we needed? Let's type that in again. Another 4 centimeters. And again, this dialog box is super important. You want to make sure that you're not joining those because you want to be able to move them around independently. You want to create a new body. You need to do this every time. Make a new body. Don't let it join automatically just because you're creating things one on top of the other. Then we can hit OK. Now, it would be really nice if these were actually lined up, right? So you could just try and move it over, or you could use the Align tool, which is fantastic. And we're going to modify Align. So we're going to move from, I'm going to blink body 1 so I can get it bottom body 2. It will highlight the center for you. So I'm going to move from the center of my cube to, and I have to flip this around, so if I do it from the bottom, it's going to be a problem, to the center, there we go, of my cylinder. So now we are all set. And we're going to say okie dokie. These are now aligned. No problem. Okay. Now, having just the cylinder on here is not very exciting. So I would like to work on that a little bit. Let's modify chamfer. I'm going to work with some angles here. Bring that in. And we might as well do some nice even distances. 5 millimeters. Okay. And I'm going to go over here on this side. Let's do the same thing. We could have done this together at the same time. But I wasn't quite sure where I was going with it. So sometimes you just play around and see what's going on. Okie dokie. So there we go. That starts to look interesting. Let's keep this simple. Okay, so let's add a sphere on this surface. And we'd like it a little bit bigger. A little bit bigger. There we go. And again, not to cut, make a new body so we can move it around. And if you'd like the top to be a little more interesting, again, I've made this a little bit tall, haven't I? Because we started with a height that we actually wanted. So let's move this guy down to the point where, all right, that's the top. That makes it a little bigger than what we had in mind, but kind of interesting. So there we go. So ostensibly that could be a pawn. Again, it's still feeling a little bit not interesting. So let's, tell you what, let's make a copy of this guy. To make a copy, we're going to body, and we're going to move this body. And in fact, we're going to create a copy of this body because I want to play with it. And I would like to move it down and over a bit. Now, this is where, working in 3D spaces, where am I? Okay, so that'll be interesting. Okay. Is that going to cut in? No, I need to move that over a little bit more. Okay, move this guy just a little bit, not quite towards the center. Okay, so what I want to do here is cut out a semicircle from the column that we have. So to do that, modify, combine, target body, this guy, tool body, this guy. Yes, I want to cut, but I also want to keep the tool because I want to do the same thing to the other side. So I'm going to say, okie doke, done. And I'm going to move this guy, select this body, and I'm going to move it over to this side and take a chunk out of this side. It would be really nice if those were even. I probably should have done it in mirroring. But that's all right. We're going to do that. And then modify, combine, keep the tool. Target body, same thing. Tool body, same one. And okie dokie. And then I can move, or I don't actually have to move it. I can just blink it. And we can see where I've cut chunks out of this guy. Now, if I were, yeah, it's not very interesting. But it is something that you can do with the shapes that you've got to work with. So those are the bare bones basics. Oh, you can also, let's also, while we're here, modify and do either a fillet, which is to round an edge, which you can do pretty much anywhere there. Or you could say, yes, Clara. You could also chamfer, which we did on the other sides earlier to make the angles. We could also fillet or chamfer more than one side at a time. That one, hold the shift key down to select, to modify, let's chamfer some more. Just a little bit. Okie dokie. Give ourselves a few more angles to be playing with, a little more facets. So again, you could round those, you could angle them, any number of things. So that is a start and one of the 3 versions that you'll need to make. One of the things that a couple people were talking about was adding triangles or cones. So there are a couple of ways to do that. Let's say we wanted to create, it's kind of a tall cone. Let's make this kind of a thing here. Say we wanted to create a cone from this. Not a problem. We talked about using the modify chamfer option here. We're going to select that edge and we're going to chamfer. Let's see, 3, 10, oop, too much, 9, too much, 8. Ooh, 8 we can do. So we can do 8 for the relative width of circle. Okay, that could work. And then we could decide that what we wanted to do is make that shorter. So we could come under here, Q, you can make it shorter this way. Q is the push-pull, so you can bring that right up so you have the virtual cone. You could go the other way, that's not really going to help us much. But that brings us to that shape that you can then work with. And again, if you're going to assemble something, what you want to do is modify and align, assuming that you want things, say that center point to that center point. And then, now, the other thing that we're going to have to do is then move that body. We're going to have to flip that body too, but that's all right. With it selected, hit the M key, and you can move it up. And then we can rotate it. It'd be nice if we put in 180. And then we can slide that back in, and then we can slide that back up. Put the little hat on there. And again, don't do anything without moving all the way around it. It should, for what we did and typed in the 180 degrees and moved it around and put it up, it should stay aligned. If you don't want to see that little ridge line, then make that go below the edge of the sphere, right? No problem. So now it's a fairly seamless, but not totally seamless. There we go. Point to our little guy. So that's one way to add cone shapes or pointy bits that you might be interested in doing. If you wanted another, again, if you select the move key, you can create a copy, and then you can have another one, and let's say we wanted to rotate that. Ooh, not distance, but rotation, 90 degrees. Ooh, and then move this body back and down. You could decide how you want to do that. And again, move things around until you can see how they are aligning and how that might work for you. Okay, so there's 2. You could continue to put more around there if you wanted to. All kinds of options. And another thing that you can do while in primitives is to cut things. It's easy to cut with cut a box because it has both planes and edges and all sorts of fun things. I would like that to be on that plane, but over here. So let's say 15 by 15. I would like that to be square. And in fact, we're going to type in 15 over here too. So let's get a cube. That gives us some options with our diagonals that we're going to cut through here. So construction planes are fabulous. You can offset a plane so it can come out from or into an object. You can put it at an angle through an edge or an axis. You can also do a plane through 2 edges, which is a great way to do something on a diagonal, like a triangle. So I can put that construction plane in there. It's still a box. It just has this defined diagonal bisecting, right? And then I can go to Modify, Split Body, and I can split this body, right? Body to split, that's the cube. Splitting tool is this plane, right? And I'm going to say OK, and now I have 2 bodies that I can move around. M key for moving. Ta-da! Now I have something resembling a triangle, or what might be useful for a triangle. Again, you could do a sketch and extrude, or stretch and sketch and pull out a side, but this is just another way to go. So those will give you some more things to play with. And you can, again, when you're working with these, decide what it is you need. Axes and axes, if you're working with a cylinder or cone. add a vertex, whatever it is you need. There you go. They're there. Now, those construction planes are down here, right? Plane number 1. If you're like, that's nice, but I don't want to see that because I'm working with these things now, you can just blink that plane and make it go away, which is the case with anything. If you just don't want to see it, then just blink it and you're fine. So if you're like, yeah, I don't really want to see you anymore, then we're good. Okay. So those would be the big construction things that you can work with for primitives. Let's do a second video for sculpting and a third one for sketches, and we will move forward on this project.